What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I just want to do an initial review of the FN 510 Tactical. This is a 10mm semi-automatic pistol, and I just got this recently. I got the bronze Cerakote version. Really pretty looking gun, and I do have this Hogue sleeve. I love these Hogue sleeves because I have big hands, and it really helps me to get a good purchase on this pistol. I have the Surefire X400 light laser combination with a red filter. Highly recommend you guys put red filters on all of your flashlights, especially your pistol flashlights. And the reason why is, number one, preserves your night vision, and number two, it reduces your signature, so you're not giving away your position with bright white light. If you're clearing rooms in your house or something, looking for an intruder, that white light gives away your position much easier than red light does. But one of the things I love about this pistol is that right out of the box, it comes with everything you need to shoot this suppressed. You don't have to do any modifications. It comes with a threaded barrel. It comes with suppressor height night sights. And you can also mount a red dot here. It has this plate that's easily removable. I'm going to keep this plate on. I don't plan to mount any red dots on this one, or really any of my pistols. I never mounted red dots on my pistols because, to me, a defensive pistol should only have iron sights. Adding a red dot is great for target shooting, for competition, but for real world self-defense, really iron sights is what you want. Okay, you don't see too many police officers that work the streets carrying red dots for a reason. Okay, also, if you remove this plate and put a red dot, you're going to lose these protective wings over your rear sight. Okay, and to me, this is a huge benefit, having these protective wings, because when you're carrying a pistol, especially a large pistol, there's a good chance you're going to be hitting things by accident with this pistol, and you could potentially bump your rear sight and cause it to throw your zero off. Okay, so you don't want that to happen, and this protects your rear sight from any impact, so you don't drift your sight by accident and throw your zero off. But night sights in the rear and the front, these are tritium night sights, really good sights. The only issue I have with them is I wish that they put white outlines on the rear sight like they did with the front. As you can see, the white outline around the vial. Wish they did that on the rear sight. But still, it's plenty for daytime use, and I have shot this in low light. I will attach some range footage for you. I'm going to show you guys my initial groups and results with suppressed versus unsuppressed. Okay, so I have already shot this suppressed and unsuppressed, and I also have another video coming soon of me shooting plus P loads with this pistol, so stay tuned for that. A lot of people on the internet say that you cannot shoot plus P loads out of this pistol, and I just tested that out just for my own sake, because if you get a 10mm, you want to be able to use the full power of the 10mm. You don't want to buy a 10mm pistol and have to use, moderate loads or mild loads, because then you might as well just get a 45 or a 40 Smith & Wesson. The whole reason you buy a 10mm is to get the full power, the full energy, 600 plus foot-pounds, okay, is what you want when you get a 10mm. So if you can't get that, there's no point in even getting a 10mm. There were some people on the internet that reported their guns blowing up when they were shooting buffalo bore ammunition, and I did some testing with just my hand loads, which are equal to Underwood and buffalo bore, and I didn't have any issues. My gun did not blow up. I will attach a separate video so you can check that out. So no issues there, shooting full power loads, loaded up to the safe maximum. Okay, no pressure signs, no issues there. So that's not something to worry about. This pistol is a 2025 pistol. It's brand new, straight out of the factory. Unfortunately, I can't tell you where I ordered it, but it was about $1,000, so it's not cheap. But for $1,000, you're getting everything you need right out of the box to mount a suppressor, to shoot it unsuppressed. You have a Picatinny rail on it. You have this nice Cerakote finish. You have night sights included already. Threaded barrel. You have the slots here in the front of the slide, which that's kind of a overlooked detail, because if you want to rack the slide from the front, you know, having these little cuts really helps from having your hand to slip off. So, for example, with my Glock 20 Gen 4, they don't have those cuts here, okay? So you do get a 14-round magazine and a 22-round magazine with your pistol when you buy it. These magazines are pretty expensive. It looks like they have some kind of nickel plating on them, or maybe this is just like a polished stainless steel. I'm not totally sure. The one big thing I don't like about these magazines is that they are so shiny and pretty. You know, this can actually give away your position if a ray of light hits that. You know, that's as good as a signal mirror. And when you're using the 22-round magazine, a good part of that shiny metal sticks out, you know. So, you know, as you can see, a little bit of light hits that, and that's like a signal mirror. So I would prefer if they left this like a matte finish, or if they painted it somehow. Also, if you have these shiny mags sticking out of a mag pouch, that could also give you away for whatever reason. If you're trying to be stealthy and you don't want to give away your position, that's the only thing I dislike about these mags. Otherwise, they're pretty solid. You know, if you squeeze on them, they're pretty heavy duty. The metal's nice and thick. Also, with the 22-round mag, a nice touch is that they added this plastic on the bottom, so it kind of blends in with the grip and it doesn't look like you have an extended mag. For example, on my Rock Island 1911 10mm, you can see the mag sticks out from the bottom. This is a 24-round mag, so you know, it sticks out. It kind of doesn't look as visually appealing, I guess, depending on what you consider appealing. But other than that, I think it's a great pistol. Right out of the box, you get high capacity, up to 22-round mags. Now, these mags are not cheap. I think they're $60 each, if I remember correctly, or $80 each. They're pretty expensive, much more expensive than Glock 30-round magazines, okay? But they are high quality, and you do get 22 rounds of 10mm, which should be plenty for pretty much any situation. And it is easy to take down in the field. You use this little lever here to take it down, and it does come with a steel guide rod, stainless steel guide rod, so you don't have to replace it like with Glocks. You get that plastic guide rod, which sucks. So, you know, let's say you get a Glock 20 like this Glock 20 here. This is my carry gun. Okay, right out of the box, this is $600. Then you have to replace the guide rod, because the plastic guide rod I wouldn't trust with my life. Stainless steel guide rod's going to run you $100. And then if you want to run suppressed, you're going to have to swap your barrel out, which is going to be close to $300. So now you're already pushing on the same price as the FN. Okay, here I have a KKM barrel that's threaded. And then you're going to have to get suppressor height sights. These are Trigicons. I believe these were like $150 or $200. So that's already pushing $1,200 to turn this Glock 20 into what this is. So if you do plan to shoot suppressed, you might as well just get a FN, and right out of the box you have everything you need. You have this threaded barrel, suppressor height sights, plus you have the wings here to protect the sight, and you can put an optic if you want. You got the tritium vials there for nighttime use. You got high capacity Picatinny rail. The trigger squeeze is really nice. I would say the trigger squeeze is better than my Glock 20. Just going to make sure it's clear. So much smoother and crisper than the Glock 20. And I did measure the trigger poundage. It's right around 5 pounds. It does have that same safety mechanism as the Glock has on the trigger there. Okay, but right around 5 pounds. My Glock 20 is about 6 pounds, and the trigger squeeze is terrible. Those of you guys who shoot Glocks, you'll know the triggers are just terrible. They're not really good triggers. You know, reliable gun, but not the most accurate, especially with the factory barrel. Even with the KKM barrel, I'm not getting super good accuracy with these, but they are reliable, obviously. This one, so far, I've had pretty good groups with it. I would say it's a little bit more accurate than my Glock. I believe the barrel has polygon rifling, so if you're a big shooter of hard cast bullets, you may want to maybe move over to solid copper bullets, which actually will out penetrate hard cast bullets. My Bear Defense loads are 190 grain cutting edge solids, and I can push those safely to around 1150 feet per second out of a 5-inch barrel out of my Glock 20. That's going to actually out penetrate the Buffalo Bore Heavy Outdoorsman, which is a 220 grain hard cast going 1200 feet per second, and that's going to have a lot more recoil. And then comparing to my Rock Island, I think the Rock Island is much better. Obviously it's a 1911, so it's going to have a much better trigger. This has a much better trigger. It's hammer fired. Okay, so the Rock Island is much higher quality than both of these, but you can't really compare because it's a solid metal 1911 versus striker fire. So different technology, and old versus new technology. You can't compare them. Okay, but trigger's real good. You get the suppressor height night sights basically right out of the box. It'll do everything you need. Another thing I like about this pistol is the slide is kind of on the narrow side compared to the Glock. The Glock has that really wide slide, which kind of looks cool. It's very iconic, especially the Gen 4 Glocks like this one. It's a very iconic pistol, but practically it's just unnecessarily wide. So for concealing and carrying every day and for actual real-world use, having it a little bit narrower, a little skinnier, makes it easier to rack the slide, makes it easier to carry. But another detail that I'm kind of particular about with pistols in general is the beefiness of the ejector and the extractor. And if you look at the extractor and the ejector on this pistol, it's almost as beefy as a 1911. It's beefier than the Glock ejector and extractor, but it's not as beefy as 1911s. So it's like somewhere in the middle between a Glock and a 1911, and I'll show you guys right now. I just need to get a flashlight. The comparison between the Glock and the FN and the Rock Island, their extractors and ejectors, because that's really important. You can easily break an ejector or an extractor with lots of shooting, and if one of those breaks and you need that pistol in a self-defense situation, you're going to be in trouble. So those are important details that I look at when I buy semi-automatics, is the beefiness of the ejector and the extractor. That's very, very important. So let me show you guys. So we'll start with the Glock. I don't know if you guys can see that ejector there. You can see it's kind of skinny. Look at how skinny that ejector is. Extractor looks pretty good, looks pretty beefy, but the ejector it's not really that beefy. As you can see, it's just that little piece of metal there. Extractor looks pretty good though. Now let's go to the FN. So here's the FN, and you can see, look at the ejector, how much beefier it is than the Glock ejector. Look at that, much beefier. And look at the extractor claw, it's like twice as thick, or twice as tall as the Glock extractor. You see that? It looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch or so tall. And look at the ejector, how much beefier it is. And then if we go to the Glock real quick, you can see a huge difference. Look at the ejector. The ejector's really skinny there. Okay, it's like half as thick as the FN. And then look at the extractor. It's also about half as tall as the FN. So here's the Glock, and then here's the FN. Okay, look at the difference in beefiness. Look at that extractor claw, how large it is. And look at that ejector. That's really important, guys. If you have a case that, for whatever reason, gets stuck in the chamber a little bit, maybe it's a little bit overpressured, maybe you left the ammo in the sun and it had a little bit too much pressure, you need to have a real beefy extractor and ejector to get that out, okay? So you don't want those things to fail on you in a self-defense situation. So that's a huge benefit to the FN over the Glock. And remember, just to get the Glock ready to shoot suppressed, you have to get a whole new barrel, which is going to run you $300. And then the sights, you're already going to be more expensive than the FN. So here's the Rock Island, and look at how beefy that ejector is. I mean, that is just a huge, solid piece of metal, okay, built into the frame itself. Okay, it's one solid piece of metal there. The ejector is not quite as beefy. You can see it's actually quite skinny, okay, but it's also a different design than with the FN and the Glock, because it is a 1911, so they don't need as much leverage as the FN and the Glock. But there you guys have it. Okay, so the FN, much beefier ejector and extractor. That's a very important detail. Also, another thing that's important too is the quality of all your secondary buttons and stuff here, like, you know, your mag release and your slide stop. Okay, look at the difference between the Glock and the FN. This is your mag release button here. It's just like, you know, kind of a cheap plastic. Okay, look at that. And then here's your slide stop. Okay, just a little tiny piece of like sheet metal. This thing I really hate because it doesn't really have any purchase at all on it. It's really slippery. Okay, look at how skinny it is. It just looks cheap, to be honest. And then this mag release is cheap. And then if you look at the FN, you got this nice knurled, looks like aluminum mag release button. It's just really easy to feel compared to the Glock. It has this plastic one. You can feel it too, but it's not quite as, I guess, tactile, or, you know, it just doesn't feel as easy. Okay, you can still feel it with your thumb in a stressful situation, but this is much better. Look at how much bigger it is, and you have that knurling there. This is kind of small and skinny, and if you're in a firefight or stressful situation, you know, your motor skills are affected because of adrenaline. You may have a hard time feeling your mag release, okay, especially your slide stop. I mean, that thing is just so thin. Look at that. Just a little tiny piece of sheet metal, okay? Look at this on the FN, how much beefier that is. And it's got nice knurling on it, so it's easy to, you know, grasp. And then you have your takedown lever there, much better than the little plastic takedown piece here on the Glock. So overall, the FN, in my opinion, is much higher quality than the Glock. Even the plastic, the frame plastic is just feels a lot better. It feels more heavy duty, especially where the rail is. It's like a nice thick plastic. It almost feels like aluminum up here, but it's not. It's really heavy duty versus the Glock plastic. It just looks like cheap plastic. I mean, you can see that it's plastic. This doesn't really look like plastic. It feels more heavy duty. It's a little bit heftier too. The frame feels heftier, so that means that whatever polymer they have here is probably denser than the Glock polymer. Okay, so I mean, it just feels better, feels beefier, feels stronger than the Glock. But there's the guide rod in there. You have a metal guide rod. You don't have to worry about any plastic guide rod failing you. So I'm going to do a more detailed review in the future with this pistol and comparing them all together. But stay tuned for some footage from the range, and then I'm going to have another video coming out with the Plus P test, shooting these to max pressure just to prove that it's not going to blow up, at least a new FN510. I don't know about the older ones, like from 2 or 3 years ago when they first started coming out with these. Maybe they had an issue and then they fixed it, because I didn't have any issue. My gun didn't blow up. So stay tuned for that, and check out my 10mm playlist for all of my 10mm videos. And stay tuned for the range footage. And I just upgraded all of my pistol lights to the X400 Ultra Surefire. This is an expensive light, but if you need a light to defend your life with, you definitely want to invest in something that has high quality. And I have them on my FN and my Rock Island. There's a laser here, green laser, and then I have the X300 on my Glock, which is my EDC. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a review of this light very soon, so stay tuned for that. All right, guys, first 5 shots with the FN510 Tactical. Felt pretty good. It definitely jumps a little bit more than my Rock Island. It's definitely on the lighter side, but it did toss those cases quite far, which tells me that the spring is not super stiff. Here's the cases right here. And I was shooting from bench number 6, so probably about 15 feet, so nice ejection pattern. Very good. All right, guys, first 5 shots, FN510. So pretty much dead on. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So pretty good. A little bit to the left, but my glasses were fogging up, so we'll have to take some more shots to confirm that. We'll take a couple more now, and then we'll move over to some suppressed shooting. Look at this gorgeous sunset, guys. Really beautiful sunset here. Let me show you my hits. 25 yards, first 15 shots, FN510. All right, guys, so here were my hits, 15 rounds, and looks like... All right, guys, we're gonna switch over to some subsonic ammo now. We got some HSM Full Metal Jacket. I've chronographed these in the past. They go around 1,000 feet per second. Didn't have a chance to make my usual hand loads. And we're going to use the Silencer Co. Hybrid 46M. This is the Hybrid 46M. I'm going to do a review on this one. I've compared it to the Hybrid 46. I have both. Let's see what happens here. All right, guys, here's what she looks like suppressed. Just show you what it's like with those suppressor height sights. They actually do look over the top of the suppressor, which is good. And you can see the tritium starting to glow. So let's take some shots. Look at that sunset, guys. The sunset is just amazing right now. All right, guys, here were our hits with the suppressor. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know where the 5th one went. So maybe this one. I think that one, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still a little bit to the left. Let's take a couple more. And that should conclude the initial shooting tests. All right, guys, FN510 Tactical suppressed. I think these were all my hits up here. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So this was my group here. It's pretty good. Still slightly to the left. Just like unsuppressed, you can see the unsuppressed group right here. And then the suppressed group up here. You can see the holes are a little bit bigger because of that wider nose on those HSM bullets, but here were the unsuppressed right here. Okay, and then suppressed up here. Here's my fist for comparison. So, you know, you're talking about a 4 to 6 inch group, 15 shots each, 25 yards from a rested position. That's pretty good for the first 30 shots or so. So overall, my impressions, initial impressions of the FN510 at the range, so far so good. Have to do some more testing. Looks like they are a little bit off from the factory to the left, at least the one that I got. A little bit off to the left. I was aiming right here where the neck is, and then right at the X. So you can see just slightly to the left. So just have to do a little bit of drifting. But I mean, that's good enough for self-defense ranges, even being off 4 to 6 inches to the left at 25 yards. Not really a big deal. Just hold a little bit to the right, that's all. All right, guys, I came back to the range, did some zeroing, and I'm getting closer to where I should be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 1, 2. Took 8 shots and moved over the sight just a little bit. You can see my groups are more to the right now. So, but groups are pretty good for like the first 50 shots. Hopefully the barrel will break in a little more and it'll get more accurate as time goes on.